This right here is something most drivers will never see. And honestly, that's exactly why it becomes a problem. When your brake pedal starts to feel soft, or your stopping distance gets just a little longer. Most people assume it's the pads, the rotors, maybe even the calipers. But almost nobody thinks about the fluid. And yet this sludgy liquid you're looking at is the only thing transferring the force from your foot to the brakes that stop 2 tons of metal in motion. This is not optional. This is not maintenance later. This is safety. Brake fluid is the most neglected fluid in the average car, even more than transmission fluid. And it's not because people don't care. It's because this problem hides. You can't see it from the outside. There are no drips on the ground, no warning lights, no new squeaking sound to grab your attention. Brake fluid quietly absorbs moisture, corrodes components, lowers its own boiling point, and slowly, silently reduces your braking power, while your car still looks totally fine. And here's the twist. Most drivers have never replaced it. Not once, and you might think mechanics would warn you, right? But most shops don't bring it up unless you ask. Some don't want to take the time to explain why it matters. Others avoid it because it doesn't pay as well as brakes, tires, alignments, or suspension jobs. And the shady shops, they'll try to sell you a flush when you don't even need one. So the result is this weird situation where good shops don't mention it, and bad shops push it too aggressively, leaving you, the driver, stuck in the middle. So in this video, we're going to fix that. We're going to break down exactly what brake fluid does, how it fails, and how to tell, for yourself, if yours actually needs to be replaced. No upsells, no scare tactics, just the truth. Because once you understand what's really going on inside your brake lines, you'll be able to walk into any shop with confidence, avoid the scams, and make sure your brakes actually stop when they need to. Let's get into number 1, what brake fluid actually does. Before we talk about when to replace brake fluid, we need to understand what it's actually doing. Because unlike oil or coolant, brake fluid doesn't look like it's doing anything. There's no whirring, no splashing, no motion you can see. But the moment you step on the brake pedal, this fluid becomes the entire link between your foot and the forces that can stop a 4,000-pound vehicle traveling at highway speed. When you press the brake pedal, you're not pushing directly on the wheels. You're pressurizing this fluid. That pressure travels through the brake lines, pushes the pistons in the calipers, clamps the brake pads, and squeezes the rotors. It's a chain reaction, and brake fluid is the messenger that holds the whole system together. Now, here's the key. Brake fluid has to be incompressible. That means when you push on it, it shouldn't squish, bubble, foam, or change volume. Because the moment it does, you lose braking power. That's when your pedal starts to feel soft, or it sinks further than it should, or the car doesn't slow down the way you expect. Your foot is still moving, but the force isn't reaching the brakes. In a perfect world, fresh brake fluid stays solid under heat and pressure, and the braking system works exactly the way the engineers designed it. But brake fluid has a weakness, and it's a big one. It's hygroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture from the air, and it doesn't matter if your system is sealed, moisture still finds a way in. Through rubber brake hoses, through temperature cycling, even through microscopic gaps in the reservoir vent. Slowly, drop by drop, water content rises inside the system. You can't see it, and there's no warning light for it. And this is where the real problem starts. Water boils at a much lower temperature than brake fluid. So as moisture builds up, the boiling point of your brake fluid drops. The first time your brakes get hot, long downhill, towing, summer stop-and-go traffic, that water can turn into steam inside the brake lines. Steam is compressible, and when that happens, your pedal suddenly feels soft, the brakes fade, and stopping power collapses right when you need it most. This is the part most people never learn. The brake system isn't failing because the parts are broken. It's failing because the fluid can't do its job anymore. And the craziest part? It happens slowly, silently over years, until one day you press the pedal, and the brakes don't respond like they used to. Now that we understand the what and the why, let's look at how this problem actually develops. Inside your car, even if you've never touched the reservoir, and why most drivers have no idea it's happening. Number 2. The hidden enemy, moisture. Now, here's where things get a little bit uncomfortable, because even if you take care of your car, even if you never crack the reservoir cap, moisture still finds its way into your brake fluid. And it's not from leaks or spills. It's something built into the system itself. Brake lines, for example, are reinforced rubber. Strong, durable, engineered to handle pressure. But rubber is permeable at a microscopic level. Over time, moisture from the air slowly migrates through the walls of the lines and dissolves into the fluid inside. It's not a manufacturing flaw, it's just physics. And then there's the brake fluid reservoir. The cap isn't sealed tight like a jar. It has to vent. Every time the brakes heat up and cool down, fluid expands and contracts. That means the reservoir has to breathe to equalize pressure. And when it breathes, it draws in tiny amounts of humid air. Not enough to notice, but enough to matter. Add years of temperature cycles, summer heat, winter chill, daily driving, and moisture starts accumulating drop by microscopic drop. Now imagine an animation, just a slow bar graph climbing over time. 0% moisture, 1%, 2%, and once that fluid hits around 3% water content, the boiling point falls off a cliff. Fresh brake fluid can handle extreme heat, well above the temperatures your brakes typically see. But once enough moisture is mixed in, the boiling point can drop to the point where everyday braking, not racing, not towing, just regular driving, can push that fluid toward vapor. And the moment water begins to boil inside your brake lines, it turns into gas. Gas compresses. Suddenly your brake pedal sinks toward the floor and the car doesn't slow the way you expect. This is something that doesn't warn you. There's no noise, no check engine light, no slow buildup you can feel in time to react. It's fine, until one moment it isn't. Picture driving down a long mountain descent. Maybe towing a trailer, brakes getting hotter and hotter, and then the pedal goes soft. That's called vapor lock, and when it happens, your brakes essentially stop working, even though everything looks mechanically fine. And here's the part that catches people off guard. This can happen in a car that has never leaked, has no rust issues, and looks perfectly maintained. Moisture doesn't care what the car looks like, it only cares about time. Which is why most people are driving around with brake fluid that is already past the safe threshold, and they have no idea. So now the question becomes, if this problem is so common, why don't shops say anything? And that's where things get interesting. Let's talk about it. Number 3, why mechanics rarely bring this up. Here's where the situation gets tricky, and honestly, a little frustrating. Because even though moisture in brake fluid is a very real safety issue, most mechanics won't bring it up unless you ask. And it's not because they don't care. It's because in the day-to-day flow of a repair shop, brake fluid just isn't something customers are paying attention to. People walk in asking about brakes squeaking, oil changes, check engine lights, things they see or hear. Brake fluid? It's invisible. It's out of sight, out of mind. And as a result, it becomes a low-priority conversation. And here's the business side of it. Brake fluid flushes aren't big money. Compare it to tires, brake jobs, alignments, suspension work. Those are high-value repairs that customers already understand and expect. A brake fluid flush takes time to explain. It takes time to do correctly, and most customers don't immediately feel a difference afterward. So for a good shop, unless your fluid is clearly overdue, they may just skip the conversation entirely. To them, it's easier to focus on the work they know you'll approve. But then, there are the other shops. The ones that use brake fluid as a scare tactic upsell. The kind where the service advisor comes out with a little test strip or a color chart and suddenly everything is an emergency. They'll say, you need this flush today or your brakes could fail. Not because your car actually needs it, but because it's a quick, easy bit of revenue if they can scare you into saying yes. So now you've got one end of the industry that never mentions brake fluid, and the other end pushing it when it's not necessary. That's how drivers get stuck. If no one brings it up, you assume everything is fine, and the fluid quietly degrades year after year. But if someone does bring it up, you don't know whether they're helping you or trying to sell you something. It puts you in a position where you can't rely on a warning light, you can't rely on a smell or sound, and you can't always rely on the shop's recommendation either. So the real solution? You learn how to check the condition of your brake fluid yourself. Because once you know what to look for and why it matters, you can tell the difference between a genuine safety recommendation and a sales pitch. And that's exactly what we're going to cover next. Number 4, how to know when you actually need a flush. So now that we know brake fluid can go bad, the real question is, how do you know when it actually needs to be replaced? Because remember, we don't want to ignore this, but we also don't want to fall for an unnecessary upsell. The good news is, there's a clear and objective way to check brake fluid condition, and it has nothing to do with guessing color charts, or someone telling you to just trust them. There's a simple tool professional shops use called a brake fluid boiling point tester. It literally heats up a small sample of your brake fluid and measures the temperature at which it starts to boil. That number tells you instantly whether your fluid is still safe or if it's absorbed too much moisture. This is way more reliable than looking at color, because color can change for all kinds of reasons. Old reservoir? Contaminants from rubber seals? That doesn't necessarily mean the fluid is unusable. Color is not a diagnosis. Boiling point is. Now, as a general rule of thumb, here's what to follow. Daily driver, normal commuting. Replace every 2-3 years. Mountain driving, spirited driving, or hot climates. Replace every 1-2 years. Track days, towing, heavy braking, or performance driving. Replace every 6-12 months. But again, those are intervals, not guarantees. The boiling point test is the truth.
If it's still high,
You're good. If it's dropped below the safe threshold, it's time. Let's talk about checking your reservoir because this is something you can do at home. Pop the hood and locate the brake fluid reservoir, usually near the back of the engine bay against the firewall. You don't want to open the cap unless you need to, because opening it lets moisture in. Just look at the fluid through the side of the container. It should be clear to light honey in color. Dark doesn't always mean bad, but cloudy or milky means moisture has suspended in the fluid, and that's a warning sign. And if the fluid level is a little low, don't panic. That usually means your brake pads are wearing down, because as the pads get thinner, the fluid level naturally drops. That's not a leak, that's just how the system works, and this is the moment where things shift, because now you have the knowledge most drivers don't. You don't have to rely on a service advisor's tone of voice or a color comparison chart taped to a clipboard. You know how brake fluid works. You know how it fails. And you know how to tell when it actually needs to be replaced. No fear, no upsell. Just facts. Now that you know when to replace it, the next question is what kind of brake fluid your car should use. And this is where a lot of people get confused. So let's clear that up before someone pours the wrong thing into the wrong system. Number 5. Dot 3 versus Dot 4 versus Dot 5.1. Alright, now that you know when to change your brake fluid, we need to talk about what to put back in, because this is where a lot of confusion starts, especially when you see bottles labeled Dot 3, Dot 4, Dot 5.1, and Dot 5. These numbers aren't just marketing. They tell you how the fluid behaves under heat, how it absorbs moisture, and whether it's compatible with your braking system. Let's simplify this. Dot 3 and Dot 4 are the most common fluids found in everyday cars. They are both glycol-based, which means they can safely mix with each other. The big difference is heat tolerance. Dot 4 has a higher boiling point than Dot 3, so it holds up better under heavy braking or high temperatures. If your car originally came with Dot 3, upgrading to Dot 4 is usually a straightforward improvement, especially if you drive in the mountains, tow, or just tend to brake a little harder than the average commuter. Then there's DOT. 5.1. The name confuses people because they see 5 and assume it's related to Dot 5, but it isn't. Dot 5.1 is actually another glycol-based fluid, just like DOT 3 and DOT 4. That means it's compatible and mixable with them. It simply has an even higher boiling point than Dot 4. So for performance driving, hot climates, spirited mountain runs, or vehicles that are heavier and put more heat into their brakes, Dot 5.1 can be a great upgrade without changing anything else in the braking system. Now, Dot 5 and with no 1E is the odd one out. Dot 5 is silicone-based, and you never mix it with Dot 3, Dot 4, or Dot 5.1. It does not absorb moisture at all, which sounds good on paper, but it also means any moisture that does get into the system forms pockets, leading to extremely unpredictable braking performance. Dot 5 is only used in very specific systems, usually older collector cars, some military vehicles, or restorations where long-term storage matters more than heat performance. If your vehicle doesn't explicitly call for Dot 5, don't use it. Here's a quick mental cheat sheet. Dot 3. Everyday driving. Lower boiling point. Dot 4. Better for heat, towing, mountain driving, the safe upgrade. Dot 5.1. Highest boiling point of the 3. Great for performance and heavy vehicles. Dot 5. Silicone-based. Only for systems designed for it. Do not mix. So what's the recommendation for most drivers? If your car already requires Dot 4, stick with Dot 4 or step up to Dot 5.1 for extra thermal headroom. If your car uses Dot 3, upgrading to Dot 4 is usually safe and beneficial, especially if you live where it's hot, drive aggressively, or tow. Now that you know the right fluid to use, the next step is understanding how brake fluid actually fails under real driving conditions and what it feels like when it happens. Because once you recognize those symptoms, you'll never ignore brake performance again. Let's get into that. Number 6, how brake fluid fails under real driving. So let's walk through what actually happens when brake fluid fails. Not in a lab, not on a chart, but in your car while you're driving. Imagine you're going down a long hill. You're braking repeatedly, maybe towing a trailer, maybe just dealing with heavy traffic. Every time you press the pedal, the brake pads clamp the rotors and the friction creates heat. That heat travels into the calipers and from there into the brake fluid. Normally, fresh brake fluid can take this without any issue. Its boiling point is high enough that it stays in a stable liquid state under pressure. But remember what we talked about earlier. Moisture. If the fluid has absorbed even just a few % of water content over time, its boiling point drops dramatically. And when that brake fluid gets hot enough, that moisture starts to boil. And this is where everything changes. Because the moment water turns into steam, the fluid inside your brake lines forms tiny bubbles of vapor. And unlike liquid, vapor is compressible. Now picture your foot pressing the brake pedal. Instead of pushing solid, stable fluid, you're compressing steam. The pedal suddenly feels softer. It travels farther. It might even sink toward the floor. Your brakes still look fine, pads are there, rotors are spinning, but the force is no longer getting transmitted to the wheels. You're pressing harder and harder, and the car is slowing less and less. This is called brake fade, and when it's caused by boiling fluid, it can come on quickly and without warning. Everything feels normal until the moment it doesn't. And in that moment, the difference between fresh brake fluid and old, moisture-saturated fluid is the difference between stopping in time or not stopping at all. This is the failure most drivers never see coming. The system doesn't warn you ahead of time. There's no sound, no leak, no dashboard message. It works perfectly until the day the conditions line up just wrong and the fluid can't handle the heat anymore. Which brings us to the most important part, how to make sure your brake fluid is replaced correctly and how to avoid getting stuck with the wrong kind of service. Let's talk about that next. Number 7, the right way to get it replaced. So now that you know when your brake fluid needs to be replaced, the last step is making sure it's done the right way. Because just like anything in the automotive world, there are shortcuts. And then there's the proper method that ensures your brakes feel solid, firm, and consistent. And unfortunately, not every shop does it the right way unless you specifically ask. The most reliable method is a pressure bleed or a vacuum bleed. These systems pull or push fluid through the brake line smoothly without introducing air. It gives you a clean, complete exchange, not just a partial swap. The old school method of having someone pump the brake pedal while another person opens and closes bleeder valves can work. But it's easy to introduce air, and it puts unnecessary wear on the master cylinder seals. So if you want the best results, ask the shop, do you pressure or vacuum bleed? If they answer confidently, a good sign. If they hesitate, you may want to rethink where you're getting the work done. Next, make sure the fluid going in is fresh. Brake fluid absorbs moisture even while it's sitting on a shelf. So if a shop has a big bulk jug they leave open and dip into car after car, that fluid may already be compromised. What you want to see is newly opened, sealed bottles, ideally opened in front of you. It takes 2 seconds to ask, and good shops won't be offended. They'll respect that you know what matters. And here's the final step. And it's the one that gives you absolute confirmation instead of guesswork. Ask for a boiling point test before and after the flush. This proves exactly how degraded your old fluid was, and exactly how healthy your new fluid is. No guessing. No trusting someone's word. It's a measurable safety number that tells the truth every single time. When you do these things, when you ask the right questions, understand the process, and insist on fresh fluid, you're not just maintaining your car, you're making sure your braking system performs when you need it to. Quietly, reliably, instantly, and now that you know how to protect your brake system, let's close this out with the one shift that changes everything. The confidence that comes from knowing how your car works, and not being at the mercy of chance, heat, and time.